Stuffing, dressing, dressing, stuffing. Which one are we doing? We're going to be doing a stuffing and we're going to be doing a dressing. Why do I say both? Because they're the same thing. So depending on where you are in the country, you either call it stuffing or you call it dressing. There's really no difference. Even if you put it in the bird or bake it outside the bird, they're both the same things. So here we have the ingredients for our stuffing. I have a 1 pound loaf of sourdough. I have 1 pound of Italian sausage, 2 onions, which equal about 2 cups. I've got some celery, because if you don't have celery and onion in your stuffing, I don't know, it's just not really stuffing. And we got some really nice sage. It's a really cool herb, actually. You can do a lot with it. And rosemary from our garden. Some garlic, because just gotta have garlic. Chicken stock in order to moisten the whole thing. And for those of you who are watching your waistline, please turn now. Do not look, do not pass go. We are gonna be using, yes, 1/2 pound. Yes, I said it, 1/2 pound of butter. Because life is better with butter, but you really need fat in this. So you can do a low fat version, and I'll leave it at that. Flat leaf parsley. If you can't find flat leaf, you can use curly, but this has a lot more flavor. It's very nice. And some olive oil for browning the sausage. So that's pretty much it. I just want to talk a little bit about the bread as I cut it up and a couple other things, and then we can get over to the stove pretty quick because this doesn't take too much time. So for the sourdough, I have one here that is probably about a day old or so. And in the old days, this thing would be like already, but because of dough conditioners and all this kind of stuff that they put in bread now, this still, still pretty soft. I wouldn't go ahead and just serve it like that, but it's perfect for our purposes. So whether you use a really sharp chef's knife or a serrated knife, I tend to cut mine into, that's like maybe 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch thick, something sort of like that. Then the same thing with the cubes, right? So I cut that into strips and then cut that into cubes. And I kind of go like yay big. And again, you can see it's still soft, right? It's like one or 2 days old, I don't know. I picked it up yesterday, but who knows how long it was in the store. If you can't get your knife into the bread, you know it's like really old. What we want to do is dry out the bread. And why do we want to do that? Because we're going to add liquid to it anyway. Why do you want to dry it out and then make it wet again? Well, if you add liquid to fresh bread, you're going to get panade. What the hell is that? Panade? Yeah. Basically, a panade is a bread and liquid mixture that you use as a filler and lightener, binder for farces, which are like, meatloaf, anything with like meat. And you put a panade in there, which is a mixture of the inside of the bread. You soak it in milk, right? And it becomes mushy and gummy. You put that in for like meatballs, right? But basically you end up making a paste. And that gives you some lightness as opposed to giving you really heavy meatballs. But we don't want to make a paste when we're doing a stuffing or a dressing. We want to have some distinction. I'm cutting this up, and what we're going to do is we're going to put it into a preheated oven, and you can either put it in there and toast it, or you can put it in there and more dry it out. So if you want to toast the bread, give it some color, but it still has to dry out. You don't want it just toasted, because like when you put a piece of bread in the toaster, the outside is toasted but the inside is still soft. You want the whole thing to be sort of dried out, pretty much. So what we're going to do is we're going to dry it out in the oven, in a lower oven, for a longer amount of time, and that'll give enough time for all the moisture to go bye-bye. So what I'm going to do is just sort of spread it out. This is a half sheet pan, And it's a little too small, but that's okay. It'll just take a little longer. You actually, ideally, you would want it out in one layer. And now we take that just as is. Don't put any oil, no seasoning, nothing, no butter. Don't drizzle it with anything. Just put it in the oven, middle shelf. I've got mine at 300. You can even do it at 250 if you want. It'll take a lot longer, but I've got mine at 300. And we'll just end up tossing it every once in a while over the course of probably an hour. And at the end of that time, it'll be really hard. So here's the bread right out of the oven. You see, you can actually hear it, right? Sounds like a bunch of marbles. Anyway, they're nice and dry. They're crisp. So I put them in a big mixing bowl right here. And this is the baking dish we're going to use. And I've got a large non-stick skillet over moderately high heat. You don't want to put raw meat into stuffing because you're never going to really bake it long enough for everything to cook all the way through. So if you're going to be using sausage or linguiça or chorizo or, you know, whatever, pork products or any kind of raw meat, you want to go ahead and cook them first. So we're going to go ahead and take the sausage, and I've removed the casings. Put some olive oil in there. You want to break it up as fine as you want, as fine as you can. Some people like larger chunks of meat. I like smaller. You can almost think of it really as like when you're doing a soup, right? We've done soups before, and you try to get everything about the same size because when you have a spoonful, you want a little bit of every element. God, I wish you could smell this. Ah, you smell that fennel and the seasonings in there. Once it looks like this, then you go ahead and dump the whole lot into your bread. Then I'm just going to put the same pan back onto high heat. And before it gets stupid hot, we want to add at least 1 cube of butter to start. I know, looks like a lot. It feeds at least 2 people. And we don't want to brown the butter, just want to melt the butter. But anyway, so when it looks sort of like this, right? And don't worry about the brown bits around the pan right now, okay? When it sort of looks like that, and even before the whole thing is melted, at that point you add your onion and your celery, which I chopped. Now if I had bell pepper in here, I'd have the Holy Trinity in the South, right? Okay, now what we want to do is add some diamond kosher salt, and we're gonna sweat those veggies. We want to draw out all that moisture, and we want that moisture to come out and start to evaporate so that way we can get some caramelization. At this point, we're gonna do get some color on here, and as the moisture exudes, you can go ahead and scrape up those bits. See, that's why I said don't worry about those brown bits on the side, because that's flavor. Anytime you see brown, just think flavor. And I've got it on high, and it's really not doing much right now because there's so much moisture coming out. But just take it easy. Don't rush it. And I did add a little bit of the salt in there to help draw out that moisture. If you wanted to just sweat them and have absolutely no color, you would do it on a slightly lower heat and you would cover it. So you don't really get much evaporation. And then they would become very translucent and very soft, absolutely no color, which has its purpose. We're gonna cook this for probably, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes. And once the onions and celery tell me it's time, it's like read it and leave it, right? Read the recipe, download it, take a look at it, and then put it aside. Let your senses take over and get in touch with your food. Let your food tell you what to do. See, I'm touching it now and it actually feels, actually, you can feel, right, through the spoon, it feels different even, because it's getting softer. And it smells different. And as it starts to take on color, the smell is going to change. And it'll sound different. So, we're going to let this do its thing, and we'll come back and then we'll put the herbs in there with the garlic. That's what we're looking for. We got some color, it's got some browning here and there, but it's not like really, really deep brown. And we got some more fond on the sides, don't worry about it. At that point, we then add our garlic, and then we have the sage and the fresh chopped rosemary, and we want to stir that in there. It's like an explosion of herb. Now you don't want to overcook it at this point. So I'm really not even going to cook it for a minute. And that's it, I'm done. See that? Put that in there. Now here's something I like to do once we get to that point, because I don't want to throw that out. So I'm going to take a little bit of the chicken stock and I'm going to deglaze those brown bits. And we're going to add that into the stuffing, because we're going to be adding chicken stock anyway. Okay, once that's deglazed, I'm going to go ahead and pour that in there. I'm putting it back on the stove. What am I going to put in there? Now, you don't have to do this step if you don't want to, but you can't rely completely on just chicken stock. You can technically, but you don't get the same mouthfeel. You don't get the same richness. You don't get the same texture, because fat isn't liquid. Liquid is not fat. But when the two come together, it's like a marriage made in heaven, right? So I'm going to keep stirring it until it turns to brown butter. And I'm going to go for that traditional hazelnut look. Okay, that's nice and brown right there. So at that point, I'm going to go ahead and pour that in. And then you'll notice I didn't put in the parsley while I was cooking the other herbs, because I like to put the parsley towards the end so it keeps that really nice pungent freshness that you get from parsley. I'm going to toss this a little bit first. Okay, now I'm going to put the parsley in there. And this is one of those recipes that, I know we got the sausage, and we've got the sage, and we've got the rosemary, but it is one of those recipes that does rely on parsley for a flavor component, not just for looks. Okay, now once that's tossed, at that point, we can go ahead and start adding our chicken stock. I like to start with about 1.5 cups first, and this can take up to 2 cups actually, or so. If you want it more moister, you can add more. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to my hands, just because it's easier. And I can actually feel how much moisture the bread is soaking up. So I think I can use probably the whole 2 cups. And everything is cooked in here now, so I can actually taste it, okay, for seasoning. That's yummy. Need some salt and pepper. I like a good amount of black pepper in mine. And at this point, when you put it into the baking dish, you can actually make this up to a couple days in advance if you really wanted. Keep it in the refrigerator covered, then take it out, put it right in the oven. And you probably have to cook it a little longer because it's cold out of the oven, but you can actually bring it to room temperature too if you wanted. See, so now I've got some of the bread that's been mushed up a bit, other pieces that are holding their shape, and I think that's a really cool middle ground. So you get a little bit of both worlds, if you will, in one. Put it in our baking dish that I have oiled. You can butter it too. And your hands are really the best for this. Like I say, you can feel the texture better and see how much you need to add. Now, when you put it in your baking dish, any kind of baking dish, you just want to pour it in there and don't press it down. You don't want to pack it down. You know, like, get in there, because you'll end up getting a stuffing that's really dense. You want to have some air pockets here and there. That's ready to go into a 350-degree oven covered with aluminum foil, and for about a half an hour, 40 minutes. Then we take off the foil and cook it without the foil for about another 20 minutes till the top gets nice and brown. The moment of truth. Don't you love it when you open the oven and just poof, you smell it? Oh, so smelly. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that. Wow. Okay. Nice and crispy top. Hopefully the interior is nice and moist. But boy, that looks good. That makes enough definitely for two. I made a little bit of gravy because you just gotta put gravy on there. I mean, I like turkey and I like Thanksgiving, but to me it's about the stuffing and the dessert. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Ooh, yummers, that looks nice. The inside is nice and moist. See how some of it sticks together and some of it falls apart as far as, like, you know, distinct pieces of bread. That's really nice. I like that. Gravy, cuz you gotta have gravy. And let's try it. Ooh. Damn, that's good. Wow. Okay, you guys have got to try this and then write in and let me know what you think. If you could subscribe to the channel, that would be wonderful, and ring that bell over there. And I'm gonna keep eating. Just, damn, that's good.